All right, and we are live. Oh, happy Friday. Happy Friday to everyone who's watching, and happy Friday, Natalie.
Happy Friday, Lenny, and hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, I am Natalie Push. I am a senior content producer with Greenbook. I am stepping in for Karen Lynch this week because she is over at IIEX Asia Pac in Bangkok. So, apparently, a very good event this year. Super excited about that. Um, I know our title sponsor was a huge hit. So, um, thank you so much to them for stepping in this year. I know that we had oh my gosh, sorry, Bolt Insights as our title sponsor. So thank you
Yeah.
again, Bolt. So apologies for that. Took a second. It's a Friday morning. You
And
have to
early
bear
for
with.
you.
I know it's my first thing in the morning. Haven't had my coffee. It's currently right on my side. So Um, well, Lenny, speaking of our IIX events, I know we have some other ones coming up.
We
Um,
do. Thank you, Carly, for pulling that up. Yep, North America is just around the corner. So that's the big one. Which for audience who doesn't know, when Natalie talks about being content coordinator, she IEX is a huge part of what she's doing, as well as the podcast, et cetera, et cetera. So, Carly, since you're really close to the content IEX, any sneak peeks you can give us? How's North America shaping up?
North America is going to be a good one. We're going to have lots of brands on the agenda, so super excited about that. This is my personal favorite event. Obviously, it's our biggest, so lots of good stuff coming in that pipeline. We have Bose who will be joining us on stage, so I'm very excited about that. Other than that, you'll have to definitely take a peek at our website and check out all the speakers that we have lined up. It'll be a great event. So, um, yeah, I also wanted to dive into, some other recent content that we've been seeing. I know Karen just participated in the 10K Humans panel, where they were talking about paid for your say. So obviously that's come up on the exchange before, but we just wanted to highlight that because that was some really good content.
Yeah. The Carla put the link in for Carrie Hecht posted that. Shout out to Carrie and 10K Humans for leading on this expose, and it really is. I mean, there's folks that they have registered for that program. They are going deep, and uh, it's like a Project Veritas or whatever kind of sting operation in trying to figure this out and dive in. It's pretty great. And like they did with the Bacche series, they're releasing snippets of this content that Karen was in for over the course of the next few weeks. So check it out for sure. Uh, it,
Yeah,
Data privacy and quality, it's just an issue. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What next? What do we
Yeah.
want to get to next?
Should we dive into some new products in the field that we've been seeing lately?
Yeah, lots of interesting things this week. A couple things of note. Our friends at Remesh launched their new external data import capability. So I think that's just really indicative of the trend to synthesize information. So not only using the core capabilities in the platform while conducting research in that platform, but now being able to leverage those tools, which are fundamentally AI tools, to analyze other data and synthesize it in. It's great, big step for many companies who are doing that, and congrats to Remesh. So that definitely jumped out. Our friends at Discuss have a new AI and multi-country feature. So yeah, and what's interesting is where we're seeing a lot of this development is in qualitative platforms, right? I mean, Remesh is qualitative at scale. Discuss is online focus groups effectively with more capabilities. Um, so we're just seeing lots of kind of low hanging fruit integration of new tools within qualitative, and that's two that popped out this week. So that's fantastic. One thing to discuss also off-platform research capabilities includes seamless upload of video files, which that's what they do. So again, it's this external data to be able to put in. So really cool stuff that's happening there. And then kind of a broader scope, one thing that jumped out was our friends at Shapiro and Raj with their AI tech practice. So expect to see a heck of a lot more of that. Shapiro and Raj is a full service agency with technology underpinnings, and they are just doing a lot to leverage these tools and increase speed to insight and efficiency and cost within kind of the full service consulting uh, uh, paradigm. So I think that's just really cool that they're doing that as well, and brought in somebody from with a tech background from Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce. So that's really interesting that Scott Swigert to lead that practice. So this is, we're seeing that pulling people from external outside of research with this capability and helping to inform where things go from here. So yeah, interesting stuff with new products that are being launched.
Yeah, I think other than that, we've also seen some really interesting capital deals this week. So we definitely wanted to touch on that. Lenny, do you want to start out with Accenture?
Yeah, well, Accenture's made another acquisition that plays into the research space. So it's their second deal in 2 weeks, I think. They bought a Martech firm, the Lumery, out of Melbourne. It certainly seems like Accenture, big consulting company, is accelerating their data acquisitions and their data utility acquisitions to help drive greater impact on their higher end consulting. We've seen this same basic strategy in play for a while. McKinsey early on did that with the Periscope. So I've often thought that we would eventually see more and more of the big consulting companies, Deloitte, Accenture, PwC, et cetera, Bain, making more acquisitions in the research space. I think
Well,
we're seeing
I
that
think
play out. Go
I
ahead.
think it's interesting too. I mean, the more conversations I've been having across the industry with a lot of different people, particularly with the rise of AI, as we get into more data-driven economy, kind of thinking about the ways in which researchers' roles will change. And I think so many people are kind of leaning into that consultant practice and what that will look like for researchers. So really kind of, I think it will be important to lean into that, acquire that as a skill as a researcher, and making sure that that's something that you can deliver as a company, moving forward.
Yeah, 100% agree. I'm involved with several conversations with private equity companies on kind of the future of the industry, and fundamentally, it is, there's data and there's data activation.
Right.
Right. The research industry is well positioned to play in that collecting data, using data piece. Consultancies are primarily focused on right now, what the hell do we do with it, right? Once we understand it. So yeah, I agree. I think that's a rapidly forming world that we're viewing right now, which isn't that different from what we've seen with kind of the bifurcation of service versus tech. But I think there's a strategic overlay
Right.
that's appearing. And to your point, that's important skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, often there are kind of barriers drawn and this might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, but barriers in the inside space, in my opinion, that don't necessarily need to be there. I think, it is a pretty widespread industry and people like to categorize and compartmentalize a lot of the different areas within the space. So I think kind of consulting can be that wider overview of the industry.
Is well, so interesting thing on that, right? Categorizing the industry, it's what we do at Green Book, right? Our taxonomy. But I guess I can talk about this a little bit. The interesting trend over the last few months, we have seen more companies I would consider to be marketing and consulting agencies coming into Greenbook. That is not something that there were outliers occasionally, but there's enough now that I would call it a trend.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's very indicative of that shift
Right.
that you're talking about. And yeah, everything else, we may be looking where we have to restructure the way we think about things. Of there is data, and then there's all the methodologies of how to use or how to collect the data. And then again, there's kind of this activation, which is this broader piece, which will still be focused on business issues. But
Right.
it may become a much more simplified version of the way kind of the taxonomy that we've been using within the directory
Right.
for 60
Yeah.
years.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think an interesting, kind of categorization to the extent that I'm talking about it also is, that line that exists between the UX user research
Yeah.
space
Mhm.
and research as a whole, because I think people think of it as such a different category, which I think is so interesting because it is predominantly, looking at consumer customer insights, but just in a little bit different tech lens. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, so I'll give a little other sneak peek. This will be coming soon in the latest grit that will be out here next month or so. We clearly see within the buyer side data, and then won't get into the details at the moment, but um, the the fragmentation of who is a research buyer. It is 100% apparent that is no longer centralized in the market research organization. So to your point, right? Usability, product, brand, CX, yada yada yada. There's this big universe of emerging of research users and buyers that are aligned more towards specific business issues, but they damn sure are buying research solutions just with this one, the one kind of contextual framework that they use and thinking about that. And these barriers that we see are really kind of imaginary. So it's more just about use case,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
about organizational uh, dividers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of tech, Lenny, should we dive into the hot topic of almost every week?
Well, there's a couple more pieces here. Let's first on the deal did catch my eye, and it's a segue, right?
That's true.
Robotics startup Figure raised 675 million from Microsoft, Nvidia, and OpenAI. So as we get into the two-letter topic here in a few minutes, we are already starting to see this now emergence of okay, now let's talk about robots. And these are not just the robots that are working in warehouses. I mean, these are full-on humanoid robots that are being designed to do many, many things. So the sci-fi world, I mean, here we are, and follow the money, that much money going into a startup. Uh, that is building robots means that they absolutely see that there is going to be a market for these AI powered, uh, humanoid like robots. And get ready, guys. Uh, that's coming. So that was a deal that definitely jumped out. Couple more, just real quick on that
Yeah.
too. And it's related. Uh, Tumblr is doing a deal with OpenAI Midjourney for training data. Now, Tumblr is a social media platform, but their parent company also owns WordPress. So so kind of keep that in mind that there's now lots of deals happening for acquiring content for AI training sets, and that was a big one. And another robotic AI agents. The So a little different, may not be physical robots, but kind of virtual agent avatars, if you will. Uh, see the $1 trillion market as AI agents replace 300 million jobs, according to a 2023 Goldman Sachs report. And lots of money flowing into that. So into that piece of it as well. So
I think interestingly too, though, a lot of that is really focused on the manual labor side, if I'm not mistaken. I think what I saw in that article. Yeah.
Yeah. Customer service agents, I'm not just manual, warehouse, tracking and,
retail,
retail. Absolutely. The, our friend Kyle Nell from Lowe's. I mean, Lowe's had robotic agents out in the aisle years ago. So yes, all of those things.
Which a quick shout out to Kyle Nell as well, because he recently joined us on the podcast. So make sure to check out that episode.
Is that live yet? I wasn't sure.
I am losing a little bit of track, but if it's not live yet, I promise it will be soon.
Okay. All right. So it's just the next evolution of all these things, right? None of this should be a big surprise. All right. And then what? Do we want to get into the other stuff, kind of the dark side?
we absolutely can, Lenny. Yes. So, this week, obviously, we've seen a lot of different things happening with AI, one of which is ongoing issues with Google and, everything that's been happening with Gemini. But, we've also seen a few other things going on. So should we just dive on in?
Yeah. Let's talk about it. So there's an article on Yahoo, Carly, on the inside the crisis at Google. For anyone who really was paying attention, this launch of Gemini, this wasn't just kind of a minor thing. It was a big damn deal. It affected their stock. There's been calls for the CEO to resign. It was a pretty big screw up in a very public way. And set all that aside, right? There's two pieces in my mind, at least, that sometimes we move too fast. And there's certainly an argument to be made to kind of go through and figure out how did this happen, and heads will roll because that's what happens, right? Mistakes were made, and that's just the way that's going to be. But I still remain very optimistic that not optimistic. I'm happy that it happened, not because of it. It needed to happen with somebody for us to realize, let's slow down. And these tools are not necessarily fully baked yet. Right?
Yeah.
We are still so early in this process, and we need to find fit for purpose, and it'll get there. And if a company with the resources and the prestige of Google could screw up,
right,
we need to pay attention, right, across the board, because these are black box solutions to an extent, and we need to make sure we can see what's happening and validate the results, so you don't wind up with, African American Nazis in your image generator. So anyway.
I think, another instance in which we've seen it's not fully baked is this week. Tax season is upon us. So H&R Block and TurboTax have integrated AI, and it's giving people some pretty bad advice for their taxes. Lenny and I were talking just before getting on this call, and I think an instance in which I've even seen it giving me bad results is, I don't know if anybody's watching the show Shogun. It's very good, by the way, based on the books. But anyhow, I was asking AI just to see when the next episode was coming out, and it gave me the wrong date. And so then I, fact checked with Google, and I think that's just another example of we can't be leaning into these, in the entirety right now. I think there's still a lot to go. So we just got to be patient and kind of ease into it, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and on the tax front, that jumped out at me because here's a little known fact. The many years ago, I was in that business, and I was a district manager for H&R Block, and then a regional manager for Jackson Hewitt. So, I mean, this is back in the mid 90s. So very long time ago, like before you were born, Natalie. So, and now I really feel old. But it's complex business. It's serious because even using things like TurboTax, and I do my own taxes. If you screw up, the IRS doesn't come back and say, "Oh, it's okay because you used a software and the software screwed up." Nope. You're on the hook for the mistake, regardless of how it was done. So, it, so yeah, I think it's another great example to realize we need to validate these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, One other thing on that, just kind of the drama. Uh, the OpenAI, Elon Musk sued OpenAI, and for those who don't know, he was one of the early founders. He contributed to OpenAI as a nonprofit to drive and help the development of AI, right? And Musk's lawsuit was, you shouldn't have ever become a for-profit business. OpenAI is pushing back, saying, "Well, you knew we were, so drop your lawsuit."
Well,
Yeah,
Lenny, did you see the drama too with, all of the emails that are now coming to light
yes,
from Elon?
yes,
Yes.
yes. Saw that. There was a tweet that was doing a good job of kind of putting all that together. That I think the interesting question there is when we OpenAI was originally set to be a self-regulating body for the industry, I think, right? And didn't necessarily work the way that it was planned. And that if there is no uh,
Regulation.
yes, that's not exactly what I'm trying to go for. Some way, when you can do cool stuff, you just tend to do it. And sometimes there needs to be an adult in the room to say, probably shouldn't do that. Maybe we should slow down a little bit. Don't touch the hot stove. And with these technologies, that's lacking.
Yeah.
And we see that in other areas as well. And we like to think that companies will self-regulate on those things, and many do. I'm by no means, trying to impugn anyone here. Most companies realize, yeah, just because we can, clone a mammoth, maybe we shouldn't, type of thing, right? They've learned the right lesson from Jurassic Park, but but still, there needs to be some, with all these new technologies emerging. There does need to be some structure to help make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves. And the examples we just threw out of kind of errors and problems happening, I think is indicative of that we do need that. OpenAI was going to be that. It is not. And we should find some other solution so it doesn't implode or cause larger problems for users and for the world as we kind of rush for adoption on this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see even, how government regulation plays into that as we move forward. Obviously, I don't think we have one uniform opinion on how that should be approached, but I think there will be a lot of development in that space for sure.
So what is that? Okay, now I'm going to play the age card on here too.
Okay.
Obviously, for I'm a lot older than Natalie. So now in your generation,
Yeah.
you guys are digital natives, right? I mean, you just have been raised in a very different environment. Is there a view that is around that? So here's my hypothesis. People like me,
Yeah.
Gen X, we're a little skeptical. Like, whoa, wait a minute. We've seen the Terminator. We were raised with these technologies or with these ideas that this could all be bad. So we're just a little skeptical and cautious. You've been raised with these as embedded into every aspect of your life for your whole life. Does it raise the same concerns generation?
Yeah. So I will say, I think as far as my age goes, it is a little bit more unique in that I'm a little bit of that cusper. I remember when the first iPod came out, I've seen a lot of development over my life in technology. So it's not like I was an iPad kid. So with that being said, I think people, I think, are still apprehensive, but they're willing to adopt at a faster pace.
Mhm.
And I think, similar to, and I've seen mixed opinions on this, but, as far as climate change or development of technology, whether that be data privacy online, I think there are mixed opinions as to how much a government should step in and kind of be, oversight into these things. I would say by and large, in my opinion, that there needs to be some oversight in lots of these policies that are going forward. I think, even visiting the EU, you can see, and it's changed a little bit, but in the past few years, but even just clicking on what cookies you want to allow in the EU, the policies have been much different over the years as they have been in the States. So
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting. I don't necessarily have a formal opinion on, how I think they should approach the AI topic, but I think there is a lot that they need to kind of look into and think about, should there be any regulation here?
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good little segue for our last few pieces. There was an
Yeah.
article when you saw me looking up, and thank you for sharing that perspective. The I don't see the link, Carly. Maybe you can find it in the big mess of our exchange links. But there was an article on people's consumers' perception of AI and advertising, and particularly, their openness to fully AI created ads versus not. And I think it's just another aspect when we're talking about adoption. There's our personal adoption, but then there's also the companies around us and that we engage with and how they're adopting it and what impact that may have. So, uh, Carly, if we can find that link and let's pop that in, it's just a really interesting article. And there were a few more that were related about data. You brought up data privacy, and several issues around live ramp data now being challenged in the EU, which many of us use for uh, to make the connective tissue between research and marketing, continues to be a challenge. Another article on the dunnhumby partnering to deliver more kind of door to door individualized level data, and all of this just feeds into remember, AI, for our listeners, AI is just a way to leverage data in a new way effectively. So goes in my mind, I brought all that up because to your point, there is still a lot of points of caution that we need to embrace from a regulatory standpoint, adoption, personal comfort, data privacy, data quality. We can't duck out on testing the tools and utilizing the tools and moving forward, but I think we have to be cautious across the board. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm on board, Lenny.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Cool. I have not. No one has agreed with me yet today on anything, Natalie. So I appreciate that. That's the nicest thing that's happened to me all day.
Always here for you, Lenny.
Listeners, you really got to know. I mean, Nat, especially since she manages all the podcasts with that piece of things, she cracks the whip on me all of the time. So, and today is International Women's Day, and so you and Carly, Karen, so many people in our team. The women who keep me straight from a business standpoint. And big shout out to my wife Danielle, who has put up with me in every other way for almost 30 years. My should be sainted wife, as I talk about her, because she should be. Anyway, and all women.
Well, we have a lot of women on the Green Book team, so big shout out to all of them.
Yes.
Thank you also to Carly, who, helps with the exchange, puts out all the links, make sure that all of this runs smoothly. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and I guess that puts us right at time. So I think we got through just about everything. There were a couple interesting articles. Carly, let's do the article we didn't touch on. One's from Dimitri and UX. Let's include those in the links, even though we get a chance to talk about them. But it's really interesting feedback around AI and research. So let's add those in. And anything else, Natalie?
No, thanks for letting me step in while Karen was out, hope you all, enjoyed it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. No, now you're probably gonna get, subjected to this again.
oh,
So
I don't know about that, Lenny. I don't know how much I have to say. We'll see.
all right. On
Oh,
that note,
one more quick
what
side note to anybody who might be watching right now, we do have tech showcase going on today. You'll also see
mm,
me there, so make sure to check it out.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. How can I forget that? So,
Yeah.
all right, well, let's kill this and move on so you can go attend the tech showcase.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. All right, bye-bye.